ICC, analyzing a game between PJ and Nursey. This was selected as Game of the Week in the first round of the playoffs of team event number 55. And I've put here in the chat window the comments by the person that nominated it, Rubo, who nominated it just over a week or so ago. Are you kidding me? Unless it's a known trap, nobody can pull off a win in 18 moves. This entire game was concocted from my genius friends, who I might have to play against, mind. This is a true gem that must be played from both sides to truly appreciate the magic. Okay, so that's kind of a quick billing. We know that White's going to checkmate in 18 moves, or win in 18 moves, and we've got to ask ourselves, what did White do right and what did Black do wrong, and hopefully bring something to the table here so that we can, number one, make sure we don't fall into this, and number two, make sure maybe we can create something like this. So let's just have a look, and I'll make some comments as we go. Okay, so we've all seen this position before, and actually what's going to happen is there's going to be a great number of book moves here, and I'll discuss those in a moment. And every possible sub-variation is really, honestly, beyond the scope of this video. If you want, there's whole books written on the Ruy Lopez. But I'm going to get to the critical point here in a minute. We'll see where we're coming from, what I want to say. I knew this position when I was in high school, 40 years ago. It was invented probably 100 years before that. They were playing these lines because I think A6 is considered the Morphy defense. 3A6. We all know when Paul Morphy played, or at least I hope we do. That was back when, the 1850s, 1860s, somewhere in there. So anyway, these are all common lines that have been played over and over and over again. And so far we're still in one of the main lines. There's always a number of offshoot lines. Those are not important and not relevant to this discussion until we get to a point here in just a moment. There's where it is important, and I'll say where it is. And again, this is all main line. And here I'm going to stop and talk for a moment. Actually, I'm just going to no, I'll leave it right here. Okay. One of the advantages of playing a book line is that if you know it very well, you can often get a good position from it. Okay? Especially if your opponent doesn't know it well. That's one of the advantages of playing book. Now, to me, the disadvantage of playing a book line is, what if your opponent knows it better than you do? What happens? Well, you're going to have to work things out yourself. That's what's going to happen. And there's a good chance, if you have a misfire, that he's going to end up with a clear advantage on you. So myself, when I was younger, I studied a lot of book. I studied a lot of theory. Nobody was here to coach me and tell me what to do and what not to do. And I found what I said to be true, that my opponents knew the openings often better than I did. And I would reach these positions after 10, 15, 20 moves that I had basically very few winning chances in, simply because the game was dead even. And what helped my chess the most, I think, once I became a master, was to diversify my openings and play some off-the-wall stuff. Now, you have to be a decent player to get away with some odd offbeat openings that are rarely analyzed. But if you put your study time in them and understand the principles, one thing's going to happen. You're going to know the opening better than your opponent, and that's virtually guaranteed. And that's what you want. You want to get every advantage you can in an opening. And just because the grandmasters play this opening over and over, this position has been seen thousands of times, tens of thousands of times, does not mean it's the right opening for you to play. Okay? And I've given the reasons. They're too deeply analyzed. For instance, Bobby Fischer's invented Fischer random chess, also known as chess 960, he was feeling chess was being played out. Even Capablanca was saying that back in the 1920s, and he invented a variant of his own where white had extra pieces, one that moved like a knight and a rook, and one that moved like a bishop and a knight. But anyway, what can I say? If you play book, you got to know it, okay? But you're going to be left with a position that's going to be difficult to win with. And again, I'll repeat it. Just because the grandmasters are playing it doesn't mean it's the opening for you. You know, people just think it is, but it isn't. So myself, I had much more fun enterprising, playing enterprising openings like the Nxg7 defense to e4 and Qg4's defense to d4 and the queen's gambit declined, getting my opponents basically out of what they're most normally prepared for and into something that I was ready for, that I understood the ideas. And there are many openings other than those one can choose, and those are beyond the scope of this video. But anyway, back to this position. This is a known position, and I'm not going to sit here and show you all the possible moves that black can play. But because this was a book, because of what happened in this game, I did something I rarely do. I went to the databases to try to find out, is this a book trap? What went wrong here? And you know, maybe my source isn't the best, but black does not play the most common moves for the next couple moves. Okay, so that's basically what does that tell us? Well, that tells us that the move he played now is has a flaw in it, and that sometimes happens in opening theory. Sometimes an opening has been around for 10, 20, 30 years, and some sharp cookie comes along and says, oh look, there's a flaw in that variation. They try to steer somebody into it and demonstrate it over the board. Well, that comes with a great deal of preparation. First you have to find the variation, then you have to find somebody that'll play into it. To me, that's a huge waste of your resources just to try to get 1 point, because you may never get that position. I think you're better off studying and analyzing positions and learning how to coordinate your pieces. A much better investment of your time to analyze positions. And we'll kind of give some ideas here so that anyone that plays this game can sit down and test some ideas, and we'll discuss analysis here in a little bit, but we're still in theory. So anyway, to say the least, black plays one of the rarer moves, not one of the more common ones. So one thing that's possible is that black is out of his book. He knew the position up to move 11, and now he's kind of on his own. Okay, that could be, I don't know. But at some point, the book does end, and you do have to think for yourself. But what's going to happen as a result of black having to think for himself is he's got himself into a position that is full of danger if you don't know it. Okay, so white comes up with this move, which is perfectly good. And this move has been played. It's not the most common move. Check the databases. You'll find some moves that played a little more frequently. Now, let's talk about this move from an analytical point of view. Okay, first off, let's look at the most important thing that's going on right now in this game, and that's development. Okay? Look at white's queen side. Nothing's moved. Okay, he's even put a bishop over there that came from the king side, but this whole back rank is not developed. So white's going to have to do some catching up. Okay? Black is not much better off. His knight on b8 is developed, but it's up here on a5. See it? That's the queen's knight. It's found its way there. So both sides are castled, which is good. Black has 3 minor pieces out. White has 2, so black's slightly up in development. So a move like d5, what black is basically saying is, I know I accepted an isolated pawn on d6. I want to get rid of it. Okay? I want to get rid of it. I don't want it to be a weakness later. Let's back up the position a little bit, and we'll discuss that. See this pawn on this square. No pawn can guard it. As a matter of fact, right now it's being tied down, or this bishop is being tied down to the defense of that pawn. But another thing is white attacking it? The answer is, well, no, he isn't. It's twice defended and never attacked. Theoretically, it might become a weakness later, okay, but it might not. But D5 says I want to get rid of this weakness right now before your development's complete. So in principle, it seems to make sense, but it's going to allow something that and D5 I think only been, according to my source, only tried a couple of times, and I'm pretty much out of book right about here. Maybe I looked at one source and stopped. Maybe there's more on this. That's not important, but one drawback though with the D5, even though it's got its bold intentions, is it's doing a couple of things for the white position. Okay, let's back it up again, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, normally black has maintains a pawn on e5, a strong point, and he's voluntarily exchanged it. One thing about having that pawn on e5 is that it blocks this light squared bishop from going after the black king. Okay, now since black has eliminated his own pawn, black did this voluntarily. He's given white some possible opportunities to open up that diagonal. Now, white's not ready for it now, and it's black's move, but at some point, white may be trying to push his pawn to e5, even if he sacrifices the pawn, okay, with the express purpose of attacking on h7. So none of this is doable now because white has no development, really. But the board is opening up. If those two center pawns disappear, the position becomes wide open, and one side could not land a haymaker or a knockout punch here in a hurry, which is what's going to happen. So let's just go ahead and look and see what this does. Now this, like I say, it voluntarily opens up the diagonal for white, and white finds a way to deal with it. He comes up with e5. Okay, now white didn't even have to sacrifice a pawn to open up that b1 to h7 diagonal. Okay, he didn't. Black has basically willfully allowed this to happen. So now let's look at one thing too, which is kind of important. Let's look at the clock. White has 49 minutes and 52 seconds. So basically, he's living off. He's gaining time. You know, he's not even consuming his increment every move. And black is taking a little bit of time, but he still has most of the time on his clock. So his next move is critical, and I think he played it innocently and didn't realize the poison in the position. So let's go ahead and see what happened, and then we'll come back and try and find some improvements. Okay, black played knight d7. Now look at the clock. See, it went up. It went up by 16 seconds. So 45 minus 16 is 29. Black spent 29 seconds on the losing move. Okay, and he still doesn't play the best moves. So you got to take your time. You got time on the clock. You use it, especially if you're not sure of the opening. And you know, this is, according to my source, this is not book. So black's made a mistake. He's rushed his move. Now white comes up with a perfectly logical move. What knight d7 does is it shuts off this diagonal for the bishop. So now white can put this menacing knight on f5, where it wants to do a lot of damage. Okay, ideas are to go attack the black king. And look, you know, bishop's got open diagonal. Bishop's got open. This bishop has an open diagonal. Oh, that's the queen. Okay, this bishop has an open diagonal, and then here's the right diagonal for the queen. You know, white's ready to send everything he has except for the kitchen sink at the black king. What's black really got here? He's certainly not ready to attack the white king. He's not developed on his queen side yet. He's not even trying to do any counterplay on this open c file. So the clock is definitely a factor here. And now what we've seen is white has spent about 11 minutes on this move, because didn't he just have 49 minutes? Now he's got 38. You know, I throw in the increment. He's come up with a move, with a move with a lot of thought behind it. Now, when your opponent takes some time, the natural instinct sometimes is I've seen people will just play immediately. Well, why? Why do you want to play immediately? What if your opponent has really worked something out? You could fall right into it. Did you anticipate that move? Maybe you underestimated it. It's a good time to stop and take your time. Let's see how much time Nursey gives us on his reply. And he did the same. He spent 10 minutes, so that's smart. Okay, now it's White's move. What does White do? Okay, he sacrifices. That must have been a move that Black didn't expect. Okay, so let's see what happens. He takes with the king. Well, if he doesn't take with the king, he's just got a horrible game, and the G file is open for White to do all kinds of damage on. The king's very exposed. So what's White do? He gives a check. Okay, now the king's got to get a check. How are you going to do it? Well, if you put your bishop on G5, you're going to lose it. You're going to probably lose a lot more because you're now attacking the queen and threatening to discovered check. So pretty much forces king back here. And now comes Queen F5, and Black realizes that there's a mate threat on H7, and he can't stop it. How does Black stop that mate? Well, he can throw a knight in the way. He can put this knight here, but White just takes it, and the mate threat is back. So, what went wrong for Black? Okay, let's back it up. Okay. Very nice game by White, by the way, but let's try to solve this position a little bit. Now, this book or this game is now theoretically book, will it end up in a database anywhere? Who knows? Maybe somebody else has played it in this exact same position, and it's obscure and would never be known as book. But how can we improve on this position? To analyze other continuations other than D5 to me is fruitless. It goes beyond the scope of this video. Let's try and find improvement for Black here. Okay, since knight D7 failed, leaves two candidate moves, knight E8 and knight E4. Now, when you analyze a chess game, this is the way you will improve your chess. When you sit down and you try to work out the best you can work out. You don't want to use a computer to tell you what's right or wrong. Try to solve it yourself, okay? So basically, if I was going to analyze this position, I would consider two candidate moves. Knight E8. Well, one drawback with knight E8 is the knight becomes kind of passive back there. And it did nothing to shut down this diagonal. All right, it does keep the knight out of F5 because if anything, if White plays knight F5, if everything else fails, Black always has bishop takes on F5 and problem solved on what that knight can do. Okay, but knight E8 does seem a little bit passive. What else can White do here? Well, he might try Queen H5. That certainly looks enterprising. It threatens mate in 1. It probably forces Black to create a weakness in his position. So usually you don't want to have to open up your king position like this too early. White's decent here. He's got some pressure here because the queen can go to H6. It'll be hard to evict it from that square. There's potential with a pawn push to E6. Maybe some ideas with G4 and try to get a knight F5 in sometime. Get the king over in the corner and try to open up the G file. But another thing too you've got to think about is that White still hasn't finished his development on his queen side. So knight E8 would be playable, but I don't think it's the best move. I think the best move is just to play actively and play knight E4. Now this shuts off that diagonal. Okay, we've opened it up. Let's shut it off. What's White do? Well, candidate moves. You could try to chase the knight out, but then you're creating weaknesses in your own position, and it just actually drives the knight to a good square. And then he'll come back to F5 if it's kicked again, say with bishop F4. F3 also closes this diagonal for the White queen. So what does White do here other than that? Well, you can take the knight, but white potentially can win a pawn here, but black has adequate compensation. Like for instance, rook takes e4. Black has a lot of interesting candidate moves here. In no particular order, bishop b7, and maybe black can try to do some checkmating of his own. Okay, get the queen to d5. Okay, another move is bishop c5. That pins this knight. Look, the queen's unprotected on the back rank, so bishop c5 is an interesting candidate move. Or we can bring this knight into c4. So I would invite somebody who wanted to study this position to try to examine some of these lines and try to play the best move you can for both sides. Go a few moves in and get a feel for the position. So let's try the most brutal method. Okay, let's do this. Let's let black try for mate. Let's let white try for mate. Okay, so those are moves that do it right now. Does black want to put his queen on d5 right now? Well, there's no mate threat, and white may tempo it out. And I'm not saying these are the best moves. I'm just saying this is how you analyze a position. That's all. Well, let's go ahead and do what we were talking about. Let's pin that knight. Now we're not threatening to take it, but we got it pinned, and we can put another attacker on it here in short order. Okay. So what's white do? Well, let's develop a piece. Usually there's nothing wrong with developing a piece. Okay. Now let's go ahead and pin it. I'm not. Yeah. No, it's not pinned because, or not pin it, just attack it. The queen's now guarded. I'm kind of against playing knight c6. I think knight c4 is a much more active square, a much better square for the knight. What's white do now? I don't know. And again, I may or may not be playing the best moves, but I'm analyzing. And if I was to stop and spend 10, 20 minutes on this position, I'm sure I could come up with more, but that's beyond the scope of this video to try to analyze any position, try to analyze a position out like this. What's the best time to analyze this then? Well, on your own. If you're playing postal chess, they call it online or turn-based chess now. If you're playing a game like that, you got an average of 3 days a move. Okay. If you don't play too many games, so you're overwhelmed, you can actually sit down and work out a lot of variations, and working out those variations will definitely improve your play. I mean, if it wasn't for postal chess back in the days of chess by postcard, I probably never would have become a chess master. My basic story is that back in the year 1980, I got in a situation in life where I couldn't play much over the board chess because of work and so forth, and I switched to playing postal chess, and I'd look at it on my breaks. I'd look at it when I wake up in the morning, and I spent a lot of time analyzing positions. And about a year later, I was able to come back to tournament play, and it was a little rusty. My rating dropped down to about 1900, and within 3 months, I broke 2200. And I owe it all to all the analysis I did playing postal chess. It was a great direction of my time, learning how to analyze, and became national master. Then several years later, I wanted to play more masters, but it takes money to play chess. Okay, you got to pay entry fees, travel costs, and so forth, and onward and upward. And I switched to playing correspondence chess, mostly in International Correspondence Chess Federation, ICCF, playing against Americans and people all over the world. And I got into a few other national organizations like CCLA and so forth, and picked up a bunch of games against a lot of strong players, masterclass. And I did that solidly for a good 13, 14, 15 years and got burned out on it and finally gave it up. But I had great success in it. My biggest success was, aside from being a chess master, the biggest achievement of my chess career was I won gold medal for Team USA in the Pacific Area Team Tournament. This is all documented. I mean, what a wonderful thing to win gold. I twice qualified into the World Championship semifinal. Didn't go any farther, but man, did I get some tough opponents, and did I learn a lot about chess. So, and circumstances of life have precluded me from competing over the board since 1996, although I recently returned in a little quad, and now I've moved close to Los Angeles, so I'm right by the tournament scene. I was out in the middle of nowhere where you couldn't get any you had to travel 5 hours to play, find a decent game of chess. Well, now it's 20, 30, 40 minutes away. So I'm stronger than I ever was, and I know it for a fact because I sit and analyze the game out. And people don't believe it; they think I'm getting old or something and over the hill. Well, fine, motivate me, thanks. If you think I'm over the hill, then you don't know chess. But anyway, that's where I'm at, and this is what I teach. Analyze how to analyze a position, and all you do is you work out the best moves you can. And if you didn't find the best moves, next time you go to play, if you don't find the best moves, well, your opponent's going to beat you if he's a better player, or if that's basically it. But that's all right. You learn from analyzing. You learn from playing. You learn from playing better players. If the better player beats you, it's because he saw more than you. Well, now you learn something from him, how to look a little deeper. And so this is what to study, not to focus on the huge opening preparation necessary to reach this position. Okay, to me that's a huge waste of time. You can economize your time in other ways. Play openings that get you out of book quick, and then use your own wits. So let's get back to this position and try to find something else for black. Okay, that was just one line. There are many lines, and that's just an idea how to analyze. Okay, to analyze more, basically, I can make a 10-hour video. I would love to sit and talk about this position for 10 hours. I love chess that much, and I can figure out so much. And I don't, in all my videos, I say I'm not perfect. I'll make mistakes on these things. So what? I'm teaching every one of them. I'm teaching how to analyze and improve your play. This is how you increase your strength, not from sitting there playing over book lines. This, and what do I do here? It's just a waste of time. At some point, you have to analyze and think for yourself. And the quicker you do it, the better you're at. So, knight e4 was certainly a decent candidate move. And after knight f5, since the sacrifice came on g7, what's black do now? I'm of the opinion there's only one move here, and that maybe there's other ones, but g6. But white's got such a great position here. Okay, his knight's threatened. Well, candidate moves. Queen g4, maybe. The first thing that comes to mind, pin the thing. But another good candidate move, which just seems to make logical sense, is check the king. We've got a hole. The black king position is weakened, and for instance, if king up to g7, at some point we can bring the knight back to g4. Now we're threatening to win material with bishop h6 check. It would probably be a mistake for white to grab this pawn on d5 because the black bishop will develop and with tempo, and then suddenly black maybe is going to get some unnecessary counterplay. That pawn is still weak. Let it sit. So anyway, I could probably go on and on and on, and we've identified the mistake here. I think once black played bishop b7, the game was over. Knight g7 just wins outright, but there was down to one chance to save it, and that was with g6. But white's got a lot of free play here, and he'll just complete his development, and will hold the winning chances. But anyway, that gives you an idea of how to analyze a game, and I've got experience analyzing games, and I'm sharing, like you see with these videos, I try to share as much as I can in the time duration, and as long as a video or a game is entertaining, I'll keep the video running. And I'm kind of running out of ideas here because it was a short game. Just try to find some improvements and teach everyone how to analyze. And I've given my opinion on book openings. I'll just repeat it. You're investing a great deal of time for positions that you may not see. If you get out of book early, it's you against him. Show me what you got, pal. You don't have any help now. The grandmaster preparation you've done is gone. Now let's see what your other preparation has taught you. So that's my opinion. Anyway, congratulations, PJ. It was a very nice combination. Wonderful game. What can we say? It's definitely game of the week. Congratulations. I thank everyone for taking time to watch this. I hope I helped you play chess better, because that's what I'm all about, is helping everyone play chess better. And I thank you so much for your time. Take care.